I'd have to say this video is long overdue. I get a decent amount of requests on how do I purchase a used STi. What do? They're STIs. They are performance cars. And I'm going to give you a couple tips on how you can avoid getting someone's absolutely beat on STI. For an example, my personal STI has been to multiple pole dancing events, was driven in 2 SCCA rallycross events, and has had its fair share of proper thrashings out in the street. Is it possible to do all these things and still have an STI worthy of resale? And I'm talking good, honest resale, not the resale where you hand the guy the keys and say, good luck, buddy. The real question is, did I take care of mine? Can you have your Subaru cake and eat it too? A lot of this is going to depend on what type of Subaru you're trying to purchase. Are you trying to purchase someone's modified monster? Or are you trying to go for the more stock, lightly modified version? I've assembled a few things here that you'd want if you're going to go look at a car. We'll go from left to right. Here you want some shop towels to check the multiple fluids in the car. You know what? A nice white towel is good too. These are the blue shop towels. But a white one's great because you can see the conditions of the fluid and the colors of the fluid. Now, you're going to want an LED light, some rubber gloves, of course, so your hands don't get all messed up. Some type of extension. If you want to go crazy here, get an 8, 10, and a 12 millimeter. Deep socket too. One of these aftermarket intake systems that will have the cone filter with maybe a cotton media or a foam media. And if you can pop that off, you can check for oil in the intake path. If you have a bunch of oil, you have a bunch of blow-by, and your piston rings might be shit. A multimeter for testing out the battery and testing out the alternator. That's a big deal. Get one of these from Harbor Freight. It takes all the guesswork out for you. So you can see, right as of now, there is no check engine light on in my 2003 WRX. And we are going to plug in the Accessport just to show you how important it is to bring one of these Accessports or any type of code reader to you when going to purchase your used Subaru. We're going to go to read codes, and as you can see here, there is no check engine light on right now. But we have a code, P0340, camshaft position sensor A, circuit malfunction. The stored code in the computer would fail this car in a New York State inspection. When you go to look at the car and the car has previously been started by the owner of the dealership, I'd beware of that. You want a cold start. This will help you tell if there's different starting issues. If they had to use starting fluid, you're definitely going to want to know that. You don't want to poke around a hot engine, and you need some of these fluids cold to check them. Sometimes automatic transmissions require you to have a warm start to check the transmission fluid. Locate the oil dipstick and grab a rag. Clean the dipstick off as well as you can without using any type of solvents. We're going to inspect the dipstick and check how regularly the oil was changed and the condition of the motor. There's no scoring. There's no type of burnt smell. This is going to tell you right here if there's any type of damage that's immediate inside the engine. You're going to see this, the bottom half of this dipstick here is going to be destroyed. If it is corroded in some way, or if it is just black and carbon filled, you know that they did not change their oil regularly. See the condition of the gasket underneath the oil cap. That's another thing. Also take a look at the color inside this oil cap. As you can see here, there's a little bit of light burning inside there. Not a problem. For 115,000 miles, that's a good looking oil cap. Also, want to look inside here. If you see any type of ridiculous debris and a lot of this like slurry, this brown or tan slurry in there. If the owner doesn't change his oil regularly, what else doesn't he do to the car? The transmission and front differential in an STi shares the same fluid, so there will only be one dipstick. Other automatic Subarus will have one fill dipstick for the transmission and a separate dipstick for the differential. This stuff is not going to smell good. It's not supposed to. but you don't want it to smell overly burnt. Now you see right there, I would have dripped that on the turbo, and the next time I would have started the car, I would have wanted to throw up. Now you can see that mine is a touch below the full. Put just a little bit in there. You don't want to overfill it. If the fluid has a severe burnt toast smell to it, it could mean that the transmission or the front differential are on their way out. These Subaru radiators, the stock ones especially, mine went in about 100,000 miles. If you can see here, there's plastic and then there's the core. My WRX is cracked right here and the STi is cracked right in here. We're to open this right now, this would just overflow because of all the pressure from this filler tank. So the turbos have this filler tank here. You can just open this up, as long as it's not hot, get your light again and inspect the condition of the coolant. You want that coolant to be a nice greenish yellow color. Now if it's rusted, bad coolant could destroy your head gasket, and bad coolant is bad for the whole entire system. It's bad for all the lines, it's bad for the radiator, it's bad for the water pump. You can see that there's wear and scoring all over the original top mount intercooler. Still functional as long as it has no leaks in the core. Going to the brake reservoir, you want to make sure the brakes have been bled once in its life at least. Make sure it's up to max and make sure that the fluid is clear and you can see through the fluid. That means the fluid is good still. Now if the fluid is discolored or brown or black, you definitely might want to get a full brake bleed and flush going on. Same thing with the clutch reservoir, which is back in here. Same thing with that. You want to make sure that that has a good colored clear fluid to it. Clearish tan fluid. Now your power steering reservoir is a little trickier to get to, but that should have a reddish brown fluid to it, and it should smell pretty bad. It shouldn't smell very burnt, but it's not going to be a good smell for you. If they have the stock heat shield off, it's a good way to inspect the turbo, the condition of this wastegate arm. Sometimes these get bent up, and the condition of the turbo itself, if it's overly rusted. In the center section here where the oil attaches to on top of the turbo, the oil port, make sure nothing's leaking. You can also inspect the downpipe here. If this has this stock heat shield on it, means it's probably untouched. Sometimes aftermarket that have this bracket for the heat shield on it. Sometimes when people remove this and put an aftermarket one on, they ditch this little bracket right here for the heat shield because it just doesn't need to be there anymore. So that's a good telltale sign here. Ask them if they had an aftermarket downpipe on. That could mean they had stage 2 put on the car. That means a little more wear and tear on the car if you were to purchase it secondhand, because stage 2 pumps everything up for the stock engine a little bit. It's still safe, and you could still buy a great stage 2 car that's not really beat on or used too much or used past its serviceable life, where you don't want to buy a car that's already 80% worn down. I'm going to make this video into 2 parts, so this will be the end of part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 as we're going to look underneath for rust issues, other issues that are common underneath the cars, and we're going to start it up and take it for a test drive. I hope this small engine and fluid section helps some people out when they're trying to choose their Subarus for ownership. Stay tuned for part 2. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like, comment, and subscribe.